He used my 10-year-old bonsai tree as an ashtray, so I turned his bedroom into a cricket breeding ground and marinated his life in shrimp water. I know that sounds unhinged, but hear me out. Let's talk about Brad. We called him Crypto Brad because he refused to get a real job and spent all day screaming at monitors about Dogecoin. Brad was the kind of guy who wore sunglasses indoors and referred to women as females. He smelled like a locker room that had been sprayed with Axe to cover up the scent of unwashed gym shorts. Brad had zero respect for anything that didn't have an ROI. He was loud, messy, and constantly stealing my almond milk because protein is protein, bro. The violation happened on a Thursday. I had a bonsai tree, a juniper I'd been training since I was 16. I named him Mr. Miyagi. This tree was my piece. It was older than my relationship. It was art. I came home from a double shift to find Brad hosting a strategy meeting with 3 other bros in our living room. The air was thick with smoke, and there in the center of the coffee table was Mr. Miyagi, or what was left of him. Brad and his goons had used the pot as an ashtray. Cigarette butts were jammed into the moss. They had snapped off the delicate wired branches to make room for their beer cans. The foliage was singed. Mr. Miyagi was dead. I stood there, shaking. Brad looked up, eyes glazed. "Oh, my bad, dude. We couldn't find an ashtray. It's just a bush, right? I'll buy you a fern or whatever. Just a bush," I whispered. "Yeah, relax. Don't be a beta," he laughed, high-fiving a guy wearing a bucket hat. I went to my room. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stared at the ceiling and felt my soul leave my body, replaced entirely by a demon of vengeance. I tried to tell the landlord, but since Brad was technically on the lease and plants aren't furniture, he said to work it out amongst ourselves. Brad just smirked at me the next day. "Told you, untouchable." That night I began the operation. I dubbed it Project Plague. I knew Brad was a heavy sleeper, but he was terrified of bugs, like jump on a chair terrified. I went to the local reptile supply store. I bought 3 boxes of feeder crickets. The big, chirpy kind. I also stopped by the fish market and bought a pound of raw, unpeeled shrimp. I waited until Brad went to a networking event, drinking cheap beer at a dive bar. I slipped into his room. Phase 1, the sound. I took a box cutter and made a tiny slit in the mesh of his box spring mattress. I funneled about 200 crickets inside. Then I unscrewed the vent cover on his wall and dumped the rest into the ductwork. Phase 2, the smell. Brad had a hollow metal gaming desk. I popped the plastic caps off the legs and stuffed raw shrimp down into the metal tubes. I put the caps back on. Then I unscrewed the curtain rods, shoved the rest of the shrimp inside, and sealed them back up. I returned to my room, put on noise-canceling headphones, and waited. The first night the chirping started, subtlety at first, then a chorus. I heard Brad thumping the walls at 3:00 a.m. "Shut up, shut you pee." By day 3, the crickets were still singing the song of their people, but a new player had entered the game, the smell. It started as a faint ocean breeze. By day 5, Brad's room smelled like a fishing trawler that had capsized in a sewer. He was losing his mind. He tore his room apart looking for the source. He scrubbed the floors. He Febrezed until the air was toxic, but he couldn't find the shrimp because they were inside the furniture. "I think there's a dead rat in the wall." He screamed at me, looking pale and sleep-deprived. "And the noise, can you hear the noise?" I looked up from my book, face perfectly calm. "I don't smell anything, Brad, and I don't hear anything. You okay? You look stressed." Phase 3, the meltdown. A week in, the crickets inside the mattress started escaping. I woke up to a blood-curdling scream. Brad ran out of his room in his boxers, swatting at his legs. "They're in the bed. They're in the damn bed." He slept on the couch for 2 days, but the smell followed him. The shrimp had liquefied. The stench was escaping his room and violating the Geneva Convention. He finally broke. He packed his bags, gagging the whole time, and told the landlord the room was cursed and structurally unsound. He moved out within the hour, leaving his security deposit behind. I hired a professional cleaner with his money to deal with the shrimp and the bugs. It was worth every penny. He killed my peace, so I turned his life into a sensory nightmare. And honestly, the silence in the apartment now is beautiful.